Hello and welcome to today's episode of QuickBooks Tips and Tricks. Today my topic will be on using registers in QuickBooks Desktop. I am Caleb Jenkins. I work at RLJ Financial Services Inc. and my email is caleb@rljfinancial.com. I was named one of the top 10 QuickBooks ProAdvisors and the top up-and-comer ProAdvisor by Insightful Accountant. I've been named the top 40 under 40 in the accounting profession, and I was the Philanthropic Practitioner Excellence Award winner by Accountex USA. I was the youngest ProAdvisor to ever become certified at age 16. I'm also a volunteer for Christian Aid Ministry SALT program, and I volunteer for the Lamb Services Prison Ministry program. Today again we are going to be looking at using registers in QuickBooks Desktop. I'm going to focus on 4 different types of registers that QuickBooks Desktop offers. There's your checkbook registers, there's your asset account registers, there's your liability account registers, and your equity account type registers. They all function in exactly the same way. The only difference would be your checkbook register has a green background, whereas your assets, your other assets, your liabilities, and your equity registers have a orange background or brown background to the register. The only exception to this list would be under the equity accounts. Your retained earnings account will not have a register. All your other types of accounts and your equities, your liabilities, assets, or your checkbooks will all have a register that you can use within QuickBooks. Now here's what the checkbook register looks like. It will have your account at the top. It will have a listing of your transactions. It's got sorted by the date first, and then you have your number for your transaction type, the name of who you paid on the payee on the transaction. You can see the transaction account beneath it, or if it's got multiple accounts then it will say split. Then it will show the memo for the transaction, and then it will show whether it's a payment or a deposit. Again, this is a checkbook register. We can use the checkbook register to record new transactions at the bottom, or we can use the forms to record transactions. If you want to learn about using forms, check out my YouTube channel, and I have a video there about using forms in QuickBooks Desktop. On the using forms, we can use that to make our deposits or to record our checks. It depends on your preference if you want to use registers or the deposits and checks. Now, if we look at the asset registers, again, so it looks a little bit different. If functionality is exactly the same as our checkbook registers. We have our dates, they're all sorted by the date. Then we have our reference number, our transaction type, our payee, the account type, and the memo, and whether it's a decrease or an increase to the account. So this is an asset account, so our increase would be a debit to the account, and our decrease would be a credit to the account. And so you can again record new transactions at the bottom of the screen, or we can use our forms, the journal entries, to record a new transaction to this account. Now there's your liability registers. Again, it functions exactly the same as what an asset. It's going to be the decrease or the opposite. So if we're going to be decreasing our accounts, we are going to be debiting our accounts, and if we're going to be increasing our accounts, it's going to be crediting our accounts. So just the opposite of what a asset register will show. Then we have our equity registers. Again, the only type of an equity register that will show is anything except for our retained earnings account. You will not have a register for your retained earnings account. So again, it functions exactly the same. Your decrease here would be a debit, and then your increase would be a credit. So again, reverse of our asset type accounts. So let me dive right in, and I'm going to do a demo for you on QuickBooks, and I'm going to use a copy of a file for the ministry that I mentioned earlier, Christian Ministry SALT program. So if we go to our chart of accounts, there's multiple ways you can get to our registers. The one is you can use Control R on your keyboard, and then that will pull up the window to use registers, and then you can put a drop down list and see the list of the registers that you want to choose. So I could choose one of these and hit OK, and it will pull up the registers. The other way that I can do it is I can double click on my account balances on the side of the screen. However, this will only bring up our checkbook registers. So if I double click on that, it will bring up my checkbook register. Now, one thing to point out on that is each one of these accounts, whether cash or checking accounts, have their own register. Now, the third way that we can pull up the register, so we can go to our chart of accounts. Keyboard shortcut for chart of accounts is Control A. And once we pull up our chart of accounts, we can look at the chart of accounts and dig into the accounts registers that we are looking for. So again, any of our bank accounts is going to pull up the checkbook register. Any of our asset accounts is going to pull up the asset register. The liability accounts is going to pull up the liability registers, and our equity accounts is going to pull up the equity register. Now let me dive right in here, and I'm going to show you a expense account. So this is the checkbook register again, so notice it's green background for the accounts, and we can dive right in here. So the registers, one thing too then, if I want to edit this transaction, I can edit the payee right here. So I could make that to Caleb Jenkins. I can then set up a new name right while I'm here on the screen. So I can quick add my name here, and then I can change the amount to $750. One thing to be aware of here is that the transaction was already cleared. It's got the checkbox here, so that will warn me before I change the transaction because it's a cleared transaction. Then I could change the account type if I was needing to. So I could say that this is interest expense instead, and this is monthly interest expense. So I could change the transaction right here and quickly change what I need to do. Secondly, I can come down here and I can record a brand new transaction. So again, I could make this to Caleb, and I could say it's for $750, and this is for office supplies, and this would be for paper, water, and office supplies. And that was $750, and I just went and recorded a new check. Now I could record a deposit in the same manner. So I could say that this is from Caleb Jenkins, and instead of being a payment, so a check or a credit to the account, I could do a deposit or a debit to the account. And so I'm going to do this for $500. Again, this is a deposit, and I'm going to put this to other income, and so this would be a reimbursement for use of vehicle. You could put anything you want here, but this is just an example. And so then I tab again and I save the transaction. That is simply how you use the QuickBooks registers. Now you can use a checkbook register. You can do the same thing for a asset register. And so this is an accounts receivable account. Again, notice it's got the brown background instead of the green background. Then we have our liabilities registers, and then we have our equity registers. Again, all the same functionality is between them. If we double click on any one line, it will pull up that transaction into the check or into the deposit on that register, or maybe it is a, let me go back to my receivables here, maybe it's a journal entry. So I double click on it and it pulls up my journal entry. Now one thing to be aware of on that is the double click functionality only works in the space below the date or on the journal entry or on the type of a transaction it is. So where it says journal entry or where it says check or deposit, you can do it there. or you can do it in the blank space underneath the decrease, or the blank space underneath the increase, or in the blank space above the balance. Nowhere else on this line, if you click anywhere else on the line, you use that to edit the transaction, not to dive into that transaction. So that is using registers in QuickBooks Desktop basically at the basic level. If you have any further questions, feel free to send me an email. My email is Caleb, C-A-L-E-B, @rljfinancial.com. Thanks again for watching.